lot of people I meet who don't know what NLP is, the first question is, what is it? And that's a very fair question. And there's a long definition for that, and there's maybe a short definition for it. We're going to stick to the short definition for this video. The other question I get is why? Why bother learning NLP? So to the first question, what is it? Well, it stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. Richard Bandler once said that it was, or is, the study of the structure of subjective experience. He also said that it's more an attitude and an approach that leaves in its wake techniques and methods and processes. It's also known as a model for modeling, a model to figure out how people create the successes in their life, how to model that and then be able to transfer it, teach it to someone else or use it for yourself. And all these models should have a practical application that can be tested. That's sort of the nuts and bolts of NLP. What I like to use a metaphor of programming, and think of the way that you think about things as your internal software. So you have a computer, which is a hardware, and then how that computer processes is what we call the software. The computer has a way of organizing all of this information, and in such a way that it's useful to you. And we've gotten much better at this with technology, how it's progressed, and our brains have evolved in the same way. So what NLP really is discovering the software. How does the software work? Not only discovering how the software works, but how can we write our own software? So how do you process reality? And experience, we don't need to even call it subjective experience, because all experience is subjective. Two people can be standing in the same place at the same time, taking in the same reality through the five senses, and have two totally different experiences, because we create meanings. We're meaning-making machines. That is primarily what the software in our minds do. We're constantly sorting for what's important, what serves us, what's necessary, what's crucial to our survival, and also in an efficient way. Your mind is always trying to find ways to cut corners and save energy. And this basically goes back to when we were hunters and gatherers, constantly needing that energy. If we can take shortcuts, we needed to conserve and save that energy. Not so much the case in modern society these days, but your mind still works that way. The importance of learning NLP is to understand how we create reality for ourselves. How do we process this reality? How do we create experience? Because we have good experiences, we have bad experiences. The meanings we apply to these experiences end up creating governing frames for how we think about things. So we walk into a certain place, a certain context, we get a sense of it, or we look at people and we say, okay, that person's that kind of person. I go to this place and know this place is this kind of place. So we automatically make assumptions about it. This can be a very good thing, but it can also be something that limits us. We can limit our relationships, we can limit our behavior, we can limit our thinking based on these frames. So learning how you create the software is extremely important to creating the kind of life that you want to live. Once you understand how you're creating that reality, then you can then create the reality that you want to live, the reality for the life that you want to desire, or that you desire. And it's not about creating some delusion or an illusion about what your life is or who you are. We say in NLP there's the map and there's the territory, and the map is not the territory, but maps are useful. That's why we have them, so that if you completely recreated the territory, then the map doesn't serve its purpose anymore. The map is something that is small, that you can put in your pocket or that you can take with you, and it represents the territory so you know where you're going and how to get there. But it doesn't have every single blade of grass and every single grain of sand or dirt that the actual territory has. This is what our brains do. Our brain makes a map of reality. It makes a map of all the information we take in from the five senses in order for it to be useful. So we delete some information, we distort some of that information, and we generalize some of that information. I'll get more into those three: generalization, distortion, deletion, in a separate video. So when we make these shortcuts and when we make these distortions and these generalizations, this is both a very good thing that we do this, because if we took in all this information all at once, we wouldn't know what to do with it. And especially if we didn't generalize information, it would be hard to learn anything. And if we didn't distort information, it'd be hard to project anything into the future or plan. So it's very important that your brain does this. However, it can cause limitations, it can cause dysfunctional behavior. So with NLP, once we become aware of how we do these things, we can then change it. And our reality is subjective. So because our reality is subjective and experience is subjective, we can change meanings. We can change how we sort this information, and we can still keep it accurate. And it's important that the map that you're working from, the map that you operate from within your mind, is an accurate map and is a useful map and a rich map, rich with choice. That choice is going to give you a sense of freedom, and it'll enrich your options, and you'll know that there's always other ways to do things, especially if there's some sort of suffering that you're experiencing. Always having options, always having choice, grounded in accuracy. So why learn NLP? Learn NLP so that you can understand how you create the reality that you're creating, and how you can optimize it, make it better, create the reality that you desire, solve problems, end suffering, and overall create general happiness in your life and achieve and actualize your potential.